What's up, everybody? Welcome in to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. It is Thursday, October 19th. We are set for two playoff games tonight in the ALCS. We've got the Astros and Rangers, the nightcap at 8 o'clock. We'll get to that game shortly. Heaney and Urquidy on the mound for the Astros. Heaney on the mound for the Rangers. That's game 4. Rangers lead 2-1. And then the early game, if you're in Arizona tuning in to Payoff Pitch, which is presented by BetMGM, it's a 2 o'clock start in the desert. Brandon Pfaadt takes the rubber for the D-backs. Rangers Suarez for DeBundo's Phillies. Philadelphia leads the series 2-0. First pitch Eastern time at 5 o'clock. We're here every weekday. We'll be back tomorrow for Payoff Pitch. So we'll have 2 games tomorrow, right? We'll have 2 more games tomorrow to preview. Very good. So 2 games tomorrow with Tanner and Charlie. And then check out actionnetwork.com, Action Network app for all of the latest on the written side to take you through the weekend. But we'll focus on Thursday. DeBundo, I'll go to you first. Are you going to be non-biased and come back in on Brandon Pfaadt and the Arizona Diamondbacks? Because this price, D-backs are now plus 105 on the money line, Phillies minus 125. So that price has come down a bit for the Phillies on the money line, and there's some Diamondbacks money, it appears, coming in.
Yeah, and I agree with it. Before the series, Sean and I talked about, projecting this series out, talked to some other people, and pretty much all of us were in line with the first 2 games. The line was right, that Philly should be at this number, the minus 150, 60 in game 1, and then, right around the same again in game 2, a little bit tighter in game 2. And we agreed with that, and the market was right. And now, all of a sudden, the Phillies are a pretty significant road favorite in this matchup. Now, there's a plus 115 out there on Arizona. Phillies as high as minus 135 at some books. Coming into the series, this was the most even game for me, because when you looked at the difference in the starting pitcher quality, there's really not much. Brandon Pfaadt and Ranger Suarez. Look, I know there's Suarez has been cold-blooded. He's been very good in the playoffs. He's induced a lot of weak contact in his playoff career. He pitched really well in the World Series, pitched well against the Padres in the CS, and had 2 really good outings against Atlanta, throwing, twice through the order in those starts. But when you look at his numbers and his command profile, I think there are some matchup issues for him here. He got a lot of chase from the Braves. The Braves were pressing. They were clearly feeling the pressure, especially once they were down 2-1. In that 4th game, I thought especially Albies and Olsen had some really bad swings against Suarez, where they were taking stuff out of the zone. Now, this Arizona lineup, lowest swinging strike rate in baseball this season, and the fifth lowest chase rate. So they're not going to be overwhelmed by the stuff that Suarez has, because Suarez doesn't really have overpowering stuff. He's generally somebody who kind of nibbles, who induces weak contact and gets through with that. But is that going to work against this more patient lineup? Against Wheeler and Nola, when Nola had his best stuff in game 2 and Wheeler was throwing 97 and they were filling up the zone, that's a much more difficult matchup. And I think that there's been this overrating of the Phillies now in the market for this game, because if you just turn on the games, you would think they're the greatest team that's ever been assembled. I mean, they've hit 19 home runs already in the playoffs, and they've played 6 of their 8 playoff games at Citizens Bank Park, and everybody keeps talking about how great the noise is and how intimidating the crowd is and how hard it is to go to Philly. Okay, well, now they have to go on the road, so that is a little bit more of a challenge. And the pitching, Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler have also started 6 of the 8 playoff games the Phillies have played this year, and that makes a huge difference when both of those guys are top frontline aces who are throwing really good stuff and commanding the ball at an elite level. So I think there's just a really big pitcher drop-off here that the market just isn't really accounting for, because everybody just expects the Phillies to keep trucking along because they have, momentum and they're hot and they're the hot team right now.
Well, and Arizona threw their best arms in the first 2 games too, and couldn't come away with the single win in Philadelphia. That plays a part, I'm sure, too. The air's out of the balloon a bit for the Diamondbacks. That's what the public perception may be, DeBundo.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but let's compare the stats, right? So Brandon Pfaadt, since coming back up to the majors in July, has a 4.22 ERA with 73 strikeouts in 70 innings. And just 16 walks. That's a pretty good number. He's given up a good number of homers, and that's certainly going to be an issue for him against this Phillies lineup today. But let's compare that to Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez last 57 innings since July 21st. 57 innings, 57 strikeouts, 23 walks, so a considerable higher number of walks, and a 4.58 ERA. So he has not actually pitched as well. And if you go to the modeling numbers, the stuff plus that we talk about, Pfaadt in the second half of the season since coming back up, 102 stuff plus, 106 location plus. Suarez stuff, grades out below average. I think it misses something on his changeup, but it's an average profile for Suarez. So I think you can project these pitchers about even. The Philly has the better lineup, but again, with home field, this is a coin flip game for me. So, plus 115 on Arizona is worth a bet for me. You've seen some of the sharper books come down pretty hard on Arizona today. And I agree with the movement. So, in a coin flip game, you give me plus 115 recency bias. I'm going to take the Snakes, only a small play for me because maybe the market hasn't caught up to how good and locked in this Phillies lineup is, but I think that there's real chances this is 2-1 going into game 4, where the Phillies then again have the advantage because Arizona does not have a starter.
By the way, I mentioned off the top, shout out to Bundo is in the Action Network Baseball Discord channel the other day. Those of you that jumped in yesterday, courtesy of our audio director, Matt Mitchell, he asked a bunch of you, if you listened to the podcast yesterday, to jump into the Discord and type the phrase stuff plus. And congrats to the people that did type out the phrase stuff plus. If you haven't joined already in the Action Network Discord and the baseball channel, come on in. It's free. It's fun. And maybe DeBundo and Tanner McGrath, who's also here, will be chopping it up during today's games with the 5:00 start for Phillies and Diamondbacks. DeBundo's there. DeBundo's having a blast in there, giving picks to the people. And there was some very nice commentary from the people in there. So if you're enjoying the Discord channel, thanks for being in there. And thanks for typing in stuff plus and being engaged with not only the Discord, but also the podcast. Hi, Tanner. Your angle for Phillies Diamondbacks totals at 9. And as we discussed, there's feels like some sharper play coming in on the D-backs they're going to get a win in the series. It's got to be tonight, right?
Yeah. And, Anthony mentioned, he makes this closer to a coin flip game. I disagree on him. I think the Snakes are the right side as gross home dogs when Zerillo makes the Snakes a, minus 110, minus 115 favorite. Ballpark Pal's up at like minus 130. I hate this game because I really dislike both starting pitchers, but I'm on the Snakes in the first 5 and the full game. I like the first 5 more. And the reason why I like the first 5 more is that I think Pfaadt has a good matchup today. And I'll try and lay out my case here. Look, the stuff has never been an issue for him. It's always been the hard contact. His batted ball profile is a mess. But in his 2 playoff starts, he'd had just a 39% hard hit rate, an 85 mile per hour average exit velocity, 24 batted balls, only a couple barrels, like 2. And he was actually even a little unlucky, 320 average allowed, but only a 275 expected batting average. So that's encouraging stuff. Also, his location metrics improved a lot as the season progressed. He walked only 1 batter during the 2 playoff starts. So I think his command looks a little better. Pfaadt has this like high arm slot with like a really whippy release. And one pitch that he really whips in there is his sweeper. Best pitch. It's a 118 stuff plus on the sweeper this year. His best pitch by run value, by swinging strike rate, it was 19%. By average exit velocity, really everything, it was his best pitch. I think he can spam sweepers against the Phillies, who had the 6th worst expected weighted on base average against sweepers this year, the 5th highest whiff rate, a top 10 chase rate. Trey Turner struggled against the pitch this year, only a 170 xWOBA. Harper at 220, Castellanos and Schwarber at 230. And he doesn't really have platoon splits with that pitch either. Against lefties compared to righties, his expected WOBA actually goes down, and his CSW rate actually goes up. So he can battle Harper, Schwarber, Stott, Marsh alongside the righties. Another thing, Pfaadt has never pitched against the Phillies, so he has that advantage. And, I was even looking at some props for him. His strikeout props at 3.5. Our Action Labs project that fair line at 4.5. Ballpark Pals model is at 6. He's cashed over 3.5 strikeouts in like 12 of his last 13 starts. Obviously, the big problem there is that we only expect him to pitch like 50 to 55 pitches. Who knows if his outs prop is 11.5. Who knows if he gets over it. Mm-hmm. But another one you could look at too is under 1.5 walks, which is less scary because of the potential pitch count. Like I said, his location has been better. He hasn't walked more than one batter in his last 6 appearances. One thing you look at with walk props is ball percentage, which is, how many balls do you throw as a percentage of total
Thank you.
pitches. 34.2% on the year, 28% over his past 4 starts. He managed 30 strikes on 42 pitches against the Dodgers. Something like that, if you like over 11.5 outs, which I know BJ Cunningham's on per the Action Network app, you can try the strikeouts. If you like under, you can take the walks. Both are a bit juiced. If I can find a decent price, I might fire on that. So make sure you follow me in the Action app. But back to this game, Anthony talked about it. I don't know if I really trust Ranger Suarez. I think he is slightly overvalued after, dominating the Braves. Really just crushing it in his postseason career, a 1.16 postseason ERA in 7 starts. But, he's a sinker baller, and the Snakes made a lot of contact against sinkers this year. As Anthony alluded to, they made a lot of contact against everything. But they had the second lowest strikeout rate against sinkers. They had a below average ground ball rate, too. They walked a lot. And Ranger did give up 5 earned runs against them over 12 innings this year. Christian Walker and Ketel Marte combined 11 for 30 against him lifetime with 3 extra base hits. I saw Charlie DeSturco is on Walker's bases and homer per the Action Network app. It's so tough fading the Phillies because they're so good, but they're definitely overvalued. The Snakes are the right side here because I think that Pfaadt offers a unique advantage that isn't factored into the market. And now that I've said that, he will get shelled for 6 runs in the first inning.
So the thing with Pfaadt,
come on, Tanner, you're so down on yourself. It's okay. The Dodgers series is behind us now. It's a new week. It's a new appearance for you on Payoff Pitch. You're here tomorrow. That's not a good tone to set for yourself on your next 2 appearances of the show.
You're right. I'll be more positive.
But see, you can be positive, but don't call them getting punked. There's a middle ground here you can find, I think. Go ahead, DeBundo.
Yeah, so the Pfaadt usage is the big question, right? So if you want to bet his props, you got to consider, how much is he going to pitch in this game? I would be genuinely shocked if he faced Kyle Schwarber 3 times. And I think that's the matchup they're trying to avoid. He has had some decent platoon split problems this year. Lefties have kind of crushed him. And that's what happens when your sweeper is your best pitch. And so Schwarber batting leadoff and Harper in the 3-hole, I think he's pretty hard capped at 18 batters. So with that under consideration, especially considering we have not yet seen Kevin Ginkel in this series. We have not seen Paul Sewald, and we have not really seen Andrew Saalfrank, who threw 1 pitch to Bryce Harper and got him out in game 2. So their 3 top most trusted relievers right now have not pitched. Castro pitched 1 inning in game 1. So I think that, the D-backs were down and out pretty quick in game 2. They didn't use any of their top arms. Right. So I expect to see Castro, Saalfrank, Ginkel, and Sewald behind and ready to go in this game. So Lovullo down 2-0 has to manage this more aggressively than he maybe normally would. And we even saw against the Dodgers where Pfaadt faced and did really well those first 2 times through the order. And Lovullo didn't even consider letting him face Mookie and Freddie a 3rd time. So I think that he's hard capped at 18. Can you get 12 and 18? 12 outs? I think you can. The Phillies are a pretty aggressive lineup. They're going to swing early, so it's not about the pitches. It's just about, how badly do they hit him. Right. And, I know they've hit a bunch of homers, but like you said, the Pfaadt walk to strikeout numbers have improved enough that I think I do trust him. So I would certainly lean to the over on Pfaadt outs. I also like the Ranger Suarez over 1.5 walks at plus 110. Suarez walked 1 guy in his outings against the Braves. But that was, again, a much more shortened outing. I think there's a very real chance that Rob Thompson pushes Suarez here. I talked already about, his command issues and how inconsistent they've been, how much the Diamondbacks don't chase. They also don't whiff a lot. So if he's in the zone, they're going to be able to foul off pitches, wait out the balls that will come for Ranger. When Rangers had problems, it's because he can't get the put away pitch. And he keeps getting into these deep counts, then eventually misfires and has walk issues. So if you pull up just, his general game log this season, you can see some walk concerns. His last outing of the season, 4.2 innings against Pittsburgh, 2 walks. Against the Mets, he had 2 walks in 5 innings. Against the Cardinals, he had 4 walks in 6 innings. He had 3 against the Marlins in 6 innings. He had 2 against Milwaukee And then he had 3 against Minnesota, 2 against Washington, 2 against Miami. He has not had less than 2 walks in a full start since July. And so, given the matchup and given the fact that I think the leash is a little bit longer because the Phillies are up 2-0, I like Suarez over 1.5 walks plus money. That's my favorite pitcher prop. I'll have a piece up later today on the Action Network with my favorite pitcher props, which I'm going to discuss on the show anyway. So if you want to also read what I have to say, you can do that on the app and on the website.
Yeah, a lot of good points there. I think, like you said, in the 10-0 game 2 days ago, it was just mop-up duty that felt like a dog days of summer kind of bullpen day for Arizona, so their high leverage arms are available. Neither of you have discussed the total, and I think you've made points as to why you don't want to touch it because of the free swinging capabilities of both of these teams. That can go one or two ways. They can chase early and not put the bat on the ball, or we could get what we got the other night, and the Phillies keep crushing. I will say the Philadelphia Phillies team total, if you bet it at BetMGM, let's see, you can get under 4.5 runs at -105. You can push it up to 5.5 runs under -165, and then it gets a little inflated as far as the juice. But
thoughts batted ball profile is keeping me away from the total or team totals just because I think he's a little high variance. Like he's either going to really pitch well and really get his sweeper across for strikes, or he's going to get crushed. And I don't really know which one. So I'm staying away from the total. But again, I think he has a good matchup, so I'm favoring him.
Okay. All right. Very good. Let's go to Astros and Rangers. We've got Andrew Heaney, who we hypothesized could come out of the bullpen for Max Scherzer in game 3. That was not the case. The Rangers didn't go in that direction because Heaney's going to start in game 4 with Houston leading 2-1. And then it's Jose Urquidy on the mound for the Astros, who's pitched pretty well in these playoffs. Total sits at 9.5. Sean Zerillo's on the under 9.5 runs. He said he'd bet it to -110. It's at -115 at BetMGM. Rangers on the money line, -115. Urquidy and the Astros, -105. There's some slight juice on the Rangers in the first 5 for the money line. DeBundo, what direction do we want to go in for the nightcap? With the Rangers leading 2-1, Astros back in this series with an 8-5 win last night.
Yeah, there's a few things. So the first thing is that the Urquidy fastball and the way it plays matches up pretty well for Texas. They like this matchup, and they've crushed a lot of these similar kind of fastballs in the past. So that's one concern for Houston. For Texas, how do they play this? Because, we said even when it was 2-0, Sean and I discussed this on Tuesday, like they're not out of this series because I think they have the pitching advantage in game 3 and 4 because their bullpen depth is better. And that's where this comes into play. They have a chance to even the series tonight. Andrew Heaney usage is where I'm kind of targeting this matchup. So his outs prop is set at 11.5 even money at BetMGM right now. I like the under. Anything even money is fine with me. Dusty tweaked the lineup. He put Brantley in the 2-hole and pushed Tucker down to 6. That was facing Scherzer, and he based it off of Brantley having a lot of career success against Scherzer.
Yep. Tucker
has not hit in the playoffs. He did have 3 walks yesterday. I think that's an encouraging sign for Tucker. Working better at bats, getting on base when you're walking, then you tend to hit as I think Bryce Harper said that in the past. So, walks tend to forebode.
I would do what
things.
he says too.
Yeah. So he's a decent hitter, but the reality is that I think Dusty goes back to the normal lineup. We're recording this at 10:30 in the morning. We don't have the Astros lineup yet. They're the night game, but I think it's going to be Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Abreu, Tucker. He'll split the lefties, keep Tucker in the 5-hole, potentially push Brantley back down the lineup. Either way, whether he pushes Tucker or not, I don't think you're going to see more than one lefty in the first 4 batters. They're going to load up with their normal front 4. And thus, Heaney gets the first time through, then he gets to the top again. And I think he goes until Tucker the second time. And then I think he's out. I think there's a real chance he only faces 14 batters. I think there is no chance he faces more than 18 batters. And so, at 14 hitters at 11.5 as the outs prop, you got to assume he's really, really efficient. I like Heaney as fastball stuff, but the home run problem is always lurking. And I think that Bruce Bochy, as much as he's an old school type manager, he's aware of it too. And so I think they have to manage this game really tightly. They can be more aggressive with their bullpen because they didn't have to use any of their highest leverage arms last night. because they were down and they have Montgomery tomorrow. So I think this is like the all hands on deck game for Houston, for Texas. So I think there's going to be a quick hook for Heaney under 11.5 outs. The only bet I've made for this game.
Okay. And that market for Heaney not available at BetMGM. So shop around to find a line for him. As DeBundo mentioned, he's already on it. Let's see. Jose Abreu, 4 home runs in his career against Andrew Heaney. Jose Altuve, who went yard last night, 2 home runs. 9 home runs for this lineup against Andrew Heaney. Tanner, do you have a play? Oh, go ahead, DeBundo. You had something to follow
that's
up?
the thing too, right? Like Abreu's success, if he's the 13th hitter, does he get more than Alvarez twice? I mean, it's a very real possibility that Dunning or a high leverage righty is waiting for in the 4th inning or the 5th inning there. So, or even the 3rd inning, depending on when it comes. So that'll be the management decision.
Tanner, we've discussed throughout the week, DeBundo's been here for this. We mentioned just previewing, and then yesterday when we discussed Astros and Rangers, like what's Texas doing going to Max Scherzer? BJ was all over this. So was Charlie Zerillo. I think the whole company was. But Max Scherzer wasn't sharp, and it's allowed Houston to get back in the series. But is there an angle here for the Rangers based on DeBundo's analysis? If he's got the under on Heaney outs, that could be problematic. How do you feel about this spot here for the Astros with Urquidy pitching and can the Rangers with Heaney on the mound, despite the fact DeBundo's on his under outs? Is there an angle here to play on the Rangers to go up 3-1?
So I think that we're going to get like a Heaney, maybe Dane Dunning Ranger bullpen game. I kind of think that's how they play that. And that kind of makes me like the Rangers. If they refuse to flip the order over more than twice, I think that gives them a slight advantage. Heaney was good against the Astros this year, a 2.75 ERA across 20 innings. And, Anthony mentioned it. He could probably see Yordan and Kyle Tucker twice, which it could be good, actually, because he's kept both relatively quiet. Yordan is 4 for 14 with only 1 extra base hit against him, a few walks, but his slugging is low. Kyle Tucker's 1 for 10. So if Yordan and Tucker could be held at bay here, that could, provide a decent advantage, at least in the first half. Dunning had a complete blow up against Texas in September, so that scares me. But as Anthony mentioned, Urquidy, his fastball plays well for Texas. And, he allowed 9 earned runs across 17 innings and 3 starts against Texas last season. 5 came on the homer. Semien went yard twice. Seager had another. Adelise had another.
Yep.
The Rangers boast the 6th friendliest home run park in the Bigs per StatCast Park Factor. So I'm not going to say he's like immune to the long ball, especially since he allowed 2 in 5 2/3 against Minnesota in the divisional round. And another thing about this matchup is we talked about bullpen usage with the 3 straight games thing. Ryan Presley, Brian Abreu, and Hector Neris threw a combined 50 pitches last night to preserve the win. Jose Leclerc, Chapman, and Josh Sborz didn't. So also, I think the Astros are maybe a bit like juiced in the market. Some tickets are rolling in on them, maybe 60-ish%. I think a lot of people, maybe a lot of the public, look at this game and say,
I'll give it to you right now. 80% of the bets, 66% of the cash coming in on Houston.
Yeah, I think that's people saying, oh, the Astros, quote unquote, backs are against the wall. And so maybe we're getting a Rangers lineup that is crushing everything a little bit cheap. I mean, they made last night a game after Scherzer pretty much screwed them. I haven't bet the Rangers yet. I wouldn't mind seeing if like more Astros tickets roll in as the day goes on and then buying back on the Rangers. Maybe it gets down to like 110. I kind of doubt that happens because I think it started to move the other way. Zerillo makes Texas like -115. Ballpark Pals like -125. So if I got the right price, I think there's a solid edge on the Rangers, who I think have a decent matchup advantage. I would, just follow along in the Action Network app to see if I do end up firing at any point.
Yeah, below -115 is a bet for me on Texas. I don't think Heaney under outs is necessarily correlated to the Rangers doing poorly. I think that if you're playing this right, Heaney throws the first 14 batters, and then Dunning comes in to face all the righties at the bottom of the Houston lineup, whether it's, McCormick, Pena, Dubon if he's in there, and Maldonado, and then he faces Altuve, Bregman, and then you bring in a lefty in that 5th inning, whether it's Will Smith or even Chapman as early as then, maybe the 6th. for Alvarez and Tucker again. So I think that you can play this the right way and kind of use the Astros lineup against them and have an optimal pitching plan. I don't know what the Houston optimal pitching plan is because JP France is the likely guy behind or Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown has been terrible the second half of the season. He looks like he's out of gas. He's not been effective, giving up really bad quality of contact. And look, JP France pitched behind in game 2 behind Framber. He threw a couple innings and they hit 3 balls to the warning track. So they had a good read on France too. So I don't know how Houston gets the outs here today to get to their top guys. And like you mentioned, their top guys, as dominant as I love those top 3 guys, as dominant as they are, they all did pitch yesterday. So it is a back-to-back. Brian Abreu allowed his first run, I think, of the season yesterday. I think it was 31 straight outings without allowing a run until yesterday. So that streak's over, but back-to-backs for all the big Houston guys. And I kind of think they need them. So that will be interesting to watch. But yeah, Texas is a buy for me, south of 115 right now. I'm going to wait and see.
Yeah. And I actually think that liking the Heaney under outs makes me like the Rangers more. I mean, you know, if Boshi manages this a little more aggressively, that makes me like the Rangers more. Shorter leashes, don't let guys go too long and get into trouble against, a really dangerous Astros lineup.
Very good. Jose Urquidy in his career against this Rangers lineup, as currently constructed, has allowed, this is to Tanner's point, over the years, 7 home runs. Of their 17 hits this lineup has against him in his career, 7 via the long ball, 3 home runs from Marcus Semien. So the home run problem, not good for Urquidy. Okay. I think that's it. We've got Tanner's back tomorrow with Charlie DeSturco, and we'll get a game 5 in Texas in Arlington between Houston and Texas. It's a popsicle headache. I'm ready for the World Series. I want this series to be over. Just getting the geography all screwed up. And then we'll get Phillies and Diamondbacks game number 4 tomorrow. So we'll have 2 games to preview as well tomorrow on Payoff Pitch. Good stuff, gents. For DeBundo and Tanner, Brendan Glasheen, thanks for tuning in, everybody, to Payoff Pitch. We are Action Network's MLB betting podcast. More coming on Friday, October 20th. We'll preview 2 more games. Best of luck today, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.